The young and the restless spoilers shock, beneath the surface of happiness, the unraveling of a family's deception in the midst of Genoa City's endless dramas. A rare moment of joy had settled over Adam and Chelsea. They shared precious, blissful hours together, a time when smiles came easily and laughter filled every corner of their world. For a while, it seemed that fate had granted them a reprieve from the relentless storms of betrayal and heartbreak. Even young Connor, their bright-eyed son, basked in the warmth of his parents' affection, his condition showing remarkable improvement that brought hope and reassurance to all who cared for him. A glimpse of bliss. Adam and Chelsea's newfound happiness was a beacon of light in a world otherwise marred by deceit. In the quiet moments they shared, the world appeared to pause, time slowed as they embraced the promise of a future free from the past's painful memories. Connor, who had endured more than his tender years should bear, seemed to radiate pure joy when he saw his father and mother together. His laughter, innocent and unburdened, was a stark contrast to the shadows that lingered over other troubled lives in the city. The family, united in these fleeting moments, appeared almost perfect, a picture of recovery and renewal. There was a sense of peace that even the harshest critics would envy, a temporary escape from the relentless undercurrents of the city's darker secrets. The calm before the storm. Yet, as is often the case in Genoa City, the calm was merely the prelude to chaos. Hidden beneath the veneer of happiness was a web of secrets and deceptions that threatened to tear apart the very foundation of this fragile contentment. Unbeknownst to Adam and Chelsea, this moment of bliss was already morphing into the beginning of a series of events that would shatter the illusion of a happy family. Victor, a figure whose presence could chill the heart of anyone in his orbit, was soon to intervene. Deeply attached to Connor, Victor's paternal affection and protective instincts had always set him apart. However, his love for the child was rivaled only by his uncompromising nature when it came to the truth. And now, Victor had discovered something that shook him to his core, a secret that Chelsea had guarded for far too long. Victor's intervention, a truth too harsh. Victor's eyes had grown cold as he pieced together the fragments of a deception that spanned years. He had learned that the picture-perfect life Chelsea portrayed was a carefully constructed facade. Despite the happiness they all seemed to share, a disturbing truth lurked behind Chelsea's blank, emotionless expressions, a truth that revealed a trail of betrayal and manipulation. For Victor, who had always held Connor close to his heart, the revelation was a bitter pill to swallow. He could not accept that the woman who stood by Adam's side, the woman who had claimed to be a devoted mother and partner, had been exploiting Adam's trust with her artful lies. In a moment of raw determination, Victor decided that he could no longer allow this charade to continue. He knew that the time had come to intervene, to expose the deception that threatened to undo everything they had worked so hard to build. The victim of deception, Nick's heartbreak. As the storm began to gather, one of the first casualties of Chelsea's elaborate ruse emerged. Nick. Already vulnerable from previous betrayals, Nick found himself ensnared in Chelsea's web of deceit. Under her persuasive influence, he had been led to believe that Connor was, in fact, his biological son, a revelation that had rocked him to the core. The notion was intoxicating and tragic in equal measure, promising both a deep personal connection and a sense of purpose he had long craved. But as the tangled narrative unraveled, the truth began to surface. In a dramatic twist that left everyone reeling, Adam made his unexpected appearance. His sudden presence shattered the illusion, forcing Chelsea into a desperate, panicked response. With tears welling in her eyes and a look of sheer terror etched on her face, she rushed to Adam and insisted that Connor was his son. The room fell silent as the gravity of the deception became undeniable. It was all a cruel, calculated lie, a masterful performance designed to manipulate hearts and rewrite family histories. The aftermath, chaos and confusion. In the wake of this revelation, the family's world was thrown into turmoil. The air, once filled with laughter and hope, now crackled with tension and betrayal. Adam's heart was heavy with disbelief as he struggled to reconcile the image of the woman he loved with the stark reality of her betrayal. The evidence, irrefutable and damning, painted a picture of deception that stretched back years, of secret meetings, hidden messages, and carefully orchestrated lies that had kept him in the dark. Victor's intervention, though harsh, had been driven by a deep, almost paternal love for Connor and an unyielding desire to protect the truth. He knew that while the temporary happiness they had all enjoyed was precious, it could not stand on a foundation built on lies. His stern resolve was a clarion call to Adam, urging him to see the truth behind the carefully constructed mask that Chelsea had worn for so long. The battle for trust and redemption for Adam, the revelation was a double-edged sword. On one side lay the memory of joyous moments with Chelsea and Connor, memories that had given him hope for a future filled with love and unity. On the other was the cold, hard truth of betrayal, a truth that threatened to undo the very fabric of his being. The shock of it all was almost too much to bear, leaving him paralyzed by a torrent of emotions, sorrow, anger, and a deep-seated sense of betrayal that cut to the very core of his soul. Nick, too, was left reeling from the blow. The illusion of kinship that Chelsea had so carefully nurtured was nothing but a mirage, a cruel trick that had robbed him of the chance to build genuine relationships. His heart, once buoyed by hope and the promise of belonging, now lay shattered, a casualty of a deception that seemed too monstrous to fathom. The road to redemption, seeking a new beginning amidst the chaos and despair, a small spark of hope began to flicker. For all the pain and betrayal, the revelation of the truth, however devastating, offered a glimmer of possibility, a chance to rebuild on a foundation of honesty and trust. Adam, though wounded and disillusioned, knew that the only way forward was to confront the past head-on. With Victor's unyielding support and the silent, yet steady, presence of Connor, a child whose radiant smile still held the promise of a better tomorrow, Adam resolved to embark on a difficult journey toward redemption. The path ahead would not be easy. It would require confronting painful memories, acknowledging the deep scars of betrayal, and, most importantly, learning to forgive, not for the sake of those who had wronged him, but for his own healing. In a poignant moment of introspection, Adam understood that the family he had once envisioned, a family bound by truth, love, and mutual respect, was still within reach, but only if he could separate the cherished memories of better times from the harsh reality of the present. Victor's unwavering vigilance, Victor, whose fierce love for Connor had driven him to expose the deception, remained a steadfast guardian in these troubled times. He knew that the road to recovery would be fraught with challenges, but he also believed that the truth, once revealed, had the power to mend even the most broken bonds. His intervention, though painful, was an act of protection, a necessary step to ensure that Connor's future would not be marred by the deceit and manipulation that had defined so much of the past. In his own way, Victor had become a symbol of unyielding honesty in a city where secrets were currency and lies reigned supreme. His actions had sparked a chain reaction that forced the entire family to confront the reality of their situation. And though the revelations had torn apart the delicate facade of happiness they had so carefully constructed, they also opened the door to a future where trust could, slowly but surely, be rebuilt. A family at the crossroads. In the aftermath of these explosive events, the members of the family found themselves at a critical crossroads. The truth, now laid bare, was a double-edged sword. It cut through the illusions of the past, but it also offered the promise of a future unburdened by deceit. For Adam, the journey ahead would be a difficult one, filled with moments of doubt and heartache. But it was also a journey toward reclaiming his identity, rebuilding his relationships, and, most importantly, protecting the innocent light that was Connor. The deception that had once threatened to tear them apart had, in its own twisted way, set them on a path to rediscovering the true meaning of family. With every painful truth acknowledged, there was the possibility of forgiveness, and with forgiveness, the chance to start anew. As the storm of betrayal began to subside, a fragile hope emerged, a hope that even in a world as ruthless as Genoa City, the bonds of love and trust could eventually be restored. Epilogue. The promise of a new dawn in the silent aftermath of the chaos. As the first light of dawn crept over the city's skyline, Adam stood with Victor and Connor, looking out over a world that was forever changed. The journey to redemption had just begun, and while the scars of the past would remain, they would serve as reminders of the strength it took to embrace the truth. Adam vowed to rebuild his life on the solid ground of honesty, leaving behind the lies that had once threatened to destroy everything he held dear. With Victor's vigilant support and the enduring hope symbolized by Connor's bright eyes, he took the first steps toward a future defined not by deception, but by genuine love and unwavering trust. For a family once teetering on the brink of collapse, the revelation of Chelsea's deceit was both an ending and a beginning, a painful goodbye to the past, and the first tentative steps toward a new dawn where the truth, however harsh, would set them free. In the labyrinthine drama of Genoa City, where every secret carries the weight of destiny and every revelation reshapes the future, the battle for honesty and redemption is never truly over. The painful truths uncovered may leave scars, but they also pave the way for a future built on trust, a future where even the deepest betrayals can eventually lead to the promise of a new beginning. Shattered bonds and a broken home, the day truth unraveled in the hushed silence of a stormy evening. The fragile veil that held their world together was ripped apart by the unyielding force of truth. Connor, barely old enough to understand the complexities of adult secrets, inadvertently became the unwilling witness to a conversation that would forever alter the course of his life. Every word, every tear shed that night, reverberated in his young mind, igniting fears and memories that he could neither comprehend nor escape. The unthinkable revelation. It began with a soft murmur in the dimly lit living room, a conversation that Connor, hiding in the shadows, strained his ears to catch every detail. On the other side of that room, Adam clutched a crisp sheet of paper, a DNA test result that proved what he never dared to imagine. As Adam's eyes scanned the paper, his hands trembled, and a deep, guttural sob escaped him. The devastating truth shattered his heart. The child he had nurtured and loved with every fiber of his being was not biologically his. Across the room, Chelsea's anguished cries broke the silence. Her confession was as raw as it was heartbreaking. Tears streamed down her face as she admitted the painful secret. In a moment of unbearable vulnerability, she revealed that she had never known who the real father of her son was. All the carefully constructed lies, all the years of denial, now lay exposed for all to see. Yet, amidst the overwhelming grief and betrayal, Chelsea's heart held a desperate hope. She wanted Adam to become the father her son needed, to step up as a protector and a loving guardian despite the tangled truths that now lay before them. A child caught in the maelstrom for Connor, this was not just an abstract revelation, it was a cataclysm that shook him to his core. The sounds of crying and confessions, the shattering of a family's facade, and the sudden storm of adult emotions were far too much for his tender mind to bear. Already fragile and haunted by his own inner demons, the relentless echo of the adult's conversation triggered a violent resurgence of his mental turmoil. His heart pounded, and in a fit of terror, he began to scream, a piercing cry that cut through the heavy air, instilling fear in every soul within earshot. The sound of Connor's anguish was a jarring reminder of the collateral damage wrought by secrets and lies. It was a cry of pure, unadulterated fear. A raw, unfiltered outburst from a child who was overwhelmed by a truth far too heavy for him to shoulder. The aftermath of the unraveling. In the midst of the chaos, Chelsea's maternal instincts surged forward. Overcome with both regret and a desperate need to comfort her son, she rushed toward Connor, her arms outstretched in a futile bid to offer solace. But the pain and terror in his eyes told a different story. In that harrowing moment, as Chelsea reached out to embrace him, Connor recoiled with a force that shocked everyone around him, pushing his mother away with an intensity that conveyed not only his physical distress but the deep betrayal he felt in his heart. Adam, still cradling the damning paper, watched in silent agony. His world had crumbled around him, and he was left to confront the unbearable reality that the boy he had raised, the boy he had come to love as his own, was now the center of a lie he could neither mend nor escape. His tears were not just for the loss of biological connection, but for the erosion of trust, the betrayal that had festered in the shadows for years. The unraveling of a family's illusions that night, the intricate web of deceit that Chelsea had so carefully spun for years came crashing down. Every lie, every manipulation that had allowed her to hide the truth of Connor's parentage, was laid bare for all to see. The revelation was a brutal reminder that even the most loving relationships could be marred by secrets. In her confession, Chelsea's voice wavered as she spoke of her uncertainty, of the man who was the real father of her son remaining an enigma. Yet, in her heart, she clung to the belief that Adam, with his unwavering kindness and strength, could be the father that Connor needed. She believed that despite the shattered foundations, Adam's love could still provide the shelter and protection her son so desperately required. But the cost of that hope was steep. The truth had carved deep scars into the lives of everyone involved. Adam's identity, once so securely entwined with the promise of fatherhood, was now a painful reminder of a deception that could never be undone. And for Connor, the explosion of emotions left him trembling in a world that suddenly seemed full of danger and mistrust. A night of unspoken sorrow and lingering questions in the quiet that followed the chaos, the living room was filled with a silence heavy with sorrow and regret. Adam's tears glistened under the dim light as he stared at the paper that had upended his life. Chelsea, still reeling from the fallout of her confession, could only watch helplessly as the family's foundation crumbled. Connor, his eyes wide with terror and confusion, clung to a desperate need for security, a need that now felt impossible to fulfill. Questions loomed large in the wake of the revelations. Who was the real father of Connor? Could the love that had once bound them all together survive this overwhelming betrayal? And most importantly, how could a child, already vulnerable and scarred by the weight of adult secrets, ever find solace in a world where the lines between truth and deception had been so brutally redrawn? The path toward healing in the aftermath of that devastating night, the road to healing would be long and uncertain. Adam, burdened with the crushing weight of betrayal, was forced to reconsider the essence of fatherhood, not just in biological terms, but in the deeper, more profound bond of love and commitment. Chelsea, with her heart laid bare and her secrets exposed, faced the daunting challenge of earning back the trust of the very family she had jeopardized. And Connor, whose innocent world had been irrevocably tainted by the harsh truths of adult deceit, would have to learn to navigate the treacherous waters of fear and uncertainty in search of a semblance of normalcy. For now, the scars of that night would serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of trust. The echoes of Connor's terrified screams, the sight of Adam's shattered expression, and the desperate, regretful tears of Chelsea were indelible marks upon their souls, a painful testament to the cost of living in a world where even the most sacred bonds can be broken by the cruel hand of deceit. Epilogue, a new chapter, a hope for redemption. As dawn crept over the horizon, bringing with it the promise of a new day, the family stood at the precipice of an uncertain future. The journey toward healing and redemption would be arduous, fraught with setbacks and moments of despair. Yet, within the wreckage of shattered trust lay a fragile hope, the possibility that, through honesty, forgiveness, and unwavering love, they could rebuild what had been lost. Adam, determined to redefine his role not solely as a biological father but as a guardian and protector, vowed to support Connor with all the love and strength he could muster. Chelsea, burdened with guilt yet driven by a fierce maternal instinct, resolved to confront her past and strive for transparency, hoping that in time, forgiveness might bloom from the seeds of regret. And for Connor, the path to recovery would be long, but the possibility of a future filled with genuine care and compassion shone as a distant yet attainable light. In the end, while the scars of that fateful night would forever serve as a reminder of the pain of betrayal, they would also be the catalyst for a transformation, a rebirth of trust, where love and truth could one day heal even the deepest wounds. The family's story, marked by the bitter taste of deception, was far from over. It was merely the end of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. A journey toward redemption in a world where the hardest truths, once faced, could pave the way for a future defined by genuine love and resilience. In the aftermath of such harrowing revelations, every heartbeat echoed with sorrow and the determination to forge a path toward healing. The night had stripped away the illusions, leaving only raw emotion and the hope that, in time, the family might rise from the ashes of deceit to embrace a future where trust and love could finally flourish once again.